Hey guys, Ms. Berunda here. In this video, I am going to perform the dry lab for our mixture. Now, our goal for this activity is going to be to determine how to use the different separation techniques that we've learned so far and how to use them in sequence to be able to separate a mixture into its original components. So the mixture, I have it right here, it's going to be a small amount of it. It's going to be different pebbles, so sizes, shapes, colors of the pebbles. We're also going to have sand. We will have 2 different ionic compounds, and I'm not being specific about which of the ionic compounds are in the mixture because for the ones that we've learned in this class and we've studied, they all pretty much contain and have the same properties. So the important one that we have to look at here is the fact that the 2 ionic compounds that we have do dissolve in water. So we'll keep that in mind for just later on. And we also have iron filings, and we also have pepper. So before we begin with the dry lab, I want you guys to take a moment and create a flow chart as to how you would separate them. Now, the thing I'm going to perform right now, the sequence, will probably be slightly different from yours, and that's okay, because, well, there's not only one way to separate the mixtures, right? There's obviously some that are slightly better, some of them will take longer, but we're going to follow the one that I decided to design, but just make sure that you are creating a flow chart. So pause the video, create the flow chart, and then come back to it so that we can discuss. Alrighty, so hopefully you did pause the video. If you didn't, that's okay, I guess. So I'm going to start by first looking at the properties, right? So we have all solids. Some of them are ionic, so they will be able to dissolve in water, and some of them I know it's iron, one of them, so that means that I can use a magnet to separate them. So I would like for you guys to kind of think about in sequence, like what would be the easiest thing to do. And for this particular mixture, the easiest thing to do would be to just to separate the pebbles, because otherwise if you continue with the other techniques, they're just kind of be on the way. So we can use different sifters, right? So we have this wire gauze. Mr. McComb, Coach McComb reminded me of the name, so thank you for that. I couldn't remember it on the other video. So I'm gonna take my mixture, use this one, the larger one, and start separating. So hopefully you guys can kind of see we separated the larger pebbles, right? And I'm gonna use my original beaker to kind of place them in there. Now, of course, some of the pebbles that are smaller went through, which means then, right, my larger ones are here. That one's been separated. I'm going to use now a different size sifter, and that's exactly what I will do next. So sifter goes in here, and I'm just trying to like separate them by size. So basically that is what's happening. All right, so our pebbles are all out. Okay, so the next thing that I would do is, because I understand that in here I have pepper, sand, and ionic compounds still left over, I'm going to use a magnet to separate the iron filings, because that would probably be the easiest thing. If I start doing anything else, the iron is going to still be there and just going to be on the way. So I'm going to take my magnet. Oh, wrong side. Hold on, guys. I dropped it. No. Okay. So I'm going to take my magnet, and what I will do is going to be to separate that out. So we want to take the magnet, and we're collecting it. And I'm going to use a different beaker to collect my iron, right? That's what I'm doing here. And this will take a little while because we want to make sure that all of the iron is out. And since it's so small, it's powder, right? It's going to take a little while. So that's what I'm doing. And again, like I said, if your flowchart doesn't follow this particular setup or the order that I'm going through, it's okay. There's many ways that you can separate mixtures. I just like this one particular because I find it the easiest. But remember, you're separating based on properties. So I'm almost done. I'm going through the magnet, through my sample, making sure that all of my iron is out. Probably do one more because just to make sure. All right, so see, the last one is just like barely anything. So that is a sign that we're almost done with that. Okay, so I have my iron in here now. So that's been separated. Then, based on what I've kind of talked about, we still have the sand, the pepper, and the ionic compounds in the mixture. So what I would do, if I were you, I would go with electrostatic. So I forgot to get the balloon, so I'm gonna go get it, and we're gonna separate the pepper out. All right, got the balloon. And I know that in the other video, what I did was use the straws, which works just fine, but imagine wanting to take out all the pepper from in here using the straws. It would take a really long time. So what I'm gonna do instead, I'm just going to rub this like on my sweater and then use the balloon to separate that out because it's a larger surface area. So that's exactly what I will do. I would use my hair, but it's gonna then get really crazy. All right, so there we go. We have that separation, right? All of my pepper. So I'm gonna use a different container to kind of like scrub it off. We would do that over time, and ideally you would take out all the pepper. So we continue with doing that over and over. And I'm missing, some of it is falling on the table. Ideally, what you would want to do is collect as much of your sample, so you don't want to lose like any amount of it. Because of the law of conservation, you want to make sure that your percent yield is pretty high. But I'm trying to do this quickly so that you guys don't have to watch a 20-minute video again. Okay, so this last time that I performed the electrostatic, it didn't pull as much pepper anymore, so I'm assuming that it's almost done. So you see it pretty much stops. So obviously our separation techniques aren't going to be perfect. We are using kind of like not the best materials to do this. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna say that that's the last one. Okay, so I will take all of my pepper from this container, place it in here. This is what we have. All right, so then what's left in here, whoa, what is left in here, just dropped some of our sample, no. What is left in here is going to be the sand and our ionic compound. So, like I said before, ionic compounds dissolve in water. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take our sample and I'm going to place it in a beaker and add water. The reason I'm adding water is because what I want to do is have all of my ionic compound dissolved. Then I'm going to use a filter. I'm going to filtrate it because the sand is not going to dissolve. The sand is going to stay as a solid. So as it goes through the filter, our dissolved ionic compound is going to go through with the water, but the sand is going to stay on the filter. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to grab some water. And then I'm going to start filtrating. So I'm going to allow for my ionic compound to dissolve. I'm going to get, in the meantime, while it settles a little bit, I'm going to get my funnel, I'm going to get my beaker, and I'm also going to get my filter paper. So actually, because I know that what we have in here is going to be like sand, what I'm going to do is actually get the small funnel because I want to use a better filter. So I'm going to fold this, as I had explained in the other video that I made, and place it in my funnel. Place in one more fold. Place it in here. Then I'm gonna start filtrating. This will probably take a little while. but it'll work out just fine. Okay, so we're starting to see our filtration. This will take a little while, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fast forward this part. Okay guys, so after like 20 minutes of waiting on this filtration to take place, we ended up with our two last separations, right? So we have the sand, and actually whenever I collected the sand, this is what the filter ended up looking like. I had to do two, one for the original filtration and then a second one just to kind of like make sure that all the smaller particles were actually trapped and weren't able to go through. So I had to do two different ones. So our resulting sand, it looks like this, is pretty wet, right? Very chunky, so this one's easy. You could just dry it out, you could leave it out in the sun, but obviously in the lab we don't want to do that, so you would place it inside of a fume hood, turn on the fume hood, and allow all the water to eventually dry up, right? You could also place it on top of a hot plate to kind of just speed up the process so that the sand will dry up faster. Now, when it comes to our ionic compound, it was copper nitrate. Yes, it was copper nitrate and salt. So that's why you can kind of see that the liquid is a little bit kind of like bluish turquoise color. And if you remember from our separation techniques, that's exactly the color that it had, right? So what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do it in this video, but I'm just going to talk about it because it takes a while as well. I'm going to then take this on a separate evaporating dish, allow it to evaporate. So heat up the hot plate, allow the water to be boiled away, and then collect all of your solid sample. So you would, like I said, I'm not going to do this part because it takes a little while as well, but you would end up with your original mixtures. So we had our pebbles of various sizes, we have our pepper, we have our iron filings. Here, obviously, it's still in solution, but if we were to evaporate it, we would end up with the solid, our iron nitrate and salt, and then the sand. So there we go, guys. We were able to separate our dry mixture, and make sure that you compare what I did to your flow chart and see how you can make improvements, what worked, what didn't work, and then we can go from there.